Psychedelics have been going through a bit of a renaissance lately, resurgence if you will, thanks to the efforts of places like the Johns Hopkins School of Medicine that have been doing a lot of studies. What we are going to do in today's video is react to something by Big Think. It's called the heroic dose of psychedelics, according to Johns Hopkins. So let's see how much of the information that they express I agree with. I love videos like this because there's still a huge portion of the population who doesn't really understand psychedelics. They don't realize that they can be used as tools for growth and healing, tools to help people overcome addiction, even PTSD, depression, especially in microdosing. Mushrooms have yielded great results with depression, and there's still a large amount of people who don't really understand that the different classes of, say, compounds kind of make the lines blurry between drugs. Like encapsulating everything into the category of drugs, I don't think is necessarily fair, because a lot of people have this view that all of them are bad and dangerous, and they don't realize that some of them can be used as tools for growth and healing, as I said. So as research emerges, it helps change the public narrative, which helps more people be able to gain access and benefit to these amazing compounds that can help them in their life. And, you know, no one's going to be interested in exploring their use in a therapeutic setting if they're not first aware that they can be used that way. First, we got to cancel out all of this propaganda that's been perpetuated over the years. It has given a lot of these things an unwarranted bad name. So I think that's what this video is. But yeah, let's watch it and react together.
These experiences are often called ineffable, but as a scientist, I do my best to F it up by trying to describe it as much as I can. So I'll go ahead and do that.
This guy has the crazy scientist beard down pat. Look at that.
Our society has been in a mental health crisis, and it's been stagnating. A large portion of people treated with traditional antidepressants don't see benefit.
Do they not see benefit to psychedelics because you can't really put a patent and a price tag on it? Maybe that's why they push the antidepressant angle.
You have not just one or two, but lots of stories of people saying they took this thing one time and they say it had this profound impact on the course of their entire life. They really exploded on the scene in the 1960s and were associated with some really radical changes to society.
By the way, in the 1960s, the reason why Nixon created the war on drugs and vilified things like LSD and made them illegal is because they were trying to push their war movement. They wanted to conscript everybody to go fight in this Vietnam War, and then out cropped up Timothy Leary and all this counterculture movement that pushed against the, public agenda. So, make love, not war. They didn't want to go fight, and they saw things like LSD as the catalyst to this. So in order to keep their agenda going, they thought, let's vilify these drugs, which at the time were being studied and they were being researched in very therapeutic ways. In fact, a lot of people saw things like LSD as a miracle drug with so many vast majority of benefits for problem solving, for, like I said, addiction, even in low doses as an ADHD, a safe ADHD replacement for Ritalin. They saw such insane benefit, and then they all received a cease and desist letter because it was interfering with the government's agenda at the time. And a lot of people are still believing a lot of the nonsense that was spouted, I don't know, what's that, 40, 50 years ago? So yeah, the whole reason why they were vilified wasn't because they actually were exposed as being more harmful than good. It's because there was another agenda at play. And do you guys know who else has another agenda? Your evil internet provider that is watching secretly everything you do. In fact, that is why this video's sponsor is Surfshark. Because I am a proponent of keeping your privacy in your own hands, and when you use a VPN provider, you can actually do that. You can block your internet provider from seeing every little thing you're doing. So if you're watching these kinds of taboo videos, you feel safe and secure. If you sign up to Surfshark today, you're going to get a whopping 83% off, as well as an extra 3 months, and all you gotta do is use the code PSYCHED right over here. Another massive bonus besides keeping your privacy intact is if you're using a video provider like, I don't know, Hulu, Netflix, you can change your country, your location, which will unlock a whole bunch of new videos for you to devour. Anyway, you can follow the link in my video description to sign up to Surfshark today. Again, use the code PSYCHED for 83% off. Let's get back into today's video. Cheers.
I think now society is more ready to kind of accept these compounds and the whole picture of them. It's hard to imagine a more interdisciplinary topic in the realm of drugs than psychedelics. Kary Mullis won the Nobel Prize inventing PCR, which revolutionized biology. He said he wouldn't have been able to do that had he not had experience in taking psychedelics.
Same with the DNA helix. Apparently Francis Crick and his wife, who was actually the mastermind behind it all, said that they would never have discovered it had it not been for LSD. Apple computers. They probably wouldn't have even invented Apple computers without, oh, what was that? Oh, are we talking about, oh, LSD.
You move into the arts and then, who hasn't heard of musicians and other artists claiming that psychedelics had a profound impact on their creativity? There's the Beatles before LSD, and then there's the Beatles after LSD.
Which version of the Beatles did you like better? Comment below.
The initial big wave of that scientific interest for psychedelics was in the 1950s. So this was about a decade after Albert Hofmann had first discovered the psychoactive properties of LSD. I would say one of the most important groups in the history of this work was led by Abram Halfer and Humphrey Osmond in Saskatchewan, Canada.
Which is interesting because when he first was doing the research, he actually thought that it was a direct insight into, say, the schizophrenic's mind. And he was quoted saying things like, in order to better help these people, we need to actually understand what they go through. So if you take this substance, you will temporarily go insane. He later revised his thoughts as he realized that it just felt too good to be schizophrenia.
There was some unethical research, some wild research. There was controversy surrounding Timothy Leary, especially after he was fired from Harvard.
Turn on, tune in, and drop out.
Yeah, because he was influencing the youth to think for themselves. I'm not saying that all of his messages were in everyone's best interest. I mean, that's for sure. But he had a massive influence, and tied to him was the hippie movement and the use of these psychoactive chemicals, which got people to challenge the ongoing narrative and to come up with their own ideas, and the powers that be did not like that, so Mr. Leary was demonized.
I'm floored when people with really substantial life experience will say things like, this was the most meaningful experience of their life. Compared to the intensity of the subjective effects, it's remarkable how little impact these substances have on physiology, your heart rate, blood pressure. Everything has its risks, but compared to other drug classes, psychedelics are really robustly safe.
For example, in my experience, something like your heart rate on, say, LSD might say if you're resting with 60, it might go up to maybe 80 to 100. It probably would honestly maybe go up 20 to 30 beats per minute maximum. Of course, depending on the level of intensity of your trip, which is influenced by your own level of anxiety at the time, versus something else that's being used in therapy, the HER0IC thing, that's shot my heart rate up to 140, 150. My resting is 50 to 60, 3 times my resting rate. And my blood pressure has been, oh my gosh, I think it was as high as like 165 over 110. Something that would actually push a person to go to the hospital to get it checked out, versus I can't remember what it is on acid offhand, but I don't think it raised at all. Physically speaking, a lot of these compounds are extremely safe. He's right. Things like mushrooms have never accounted for a single overdose resulting in death. Same with LSD.
My therapeutic research with psychedelics has primarily used psilocybin, which is the agent in magic mushrooms. The dose we now give to patients is anywhere from 30 milligrams to 40 milligrams.
Which is comparable to like 5 to 6 grams of averagely potent dried mushrooms, which is a high amount.
Which Terence McKenna, who's the famous psychedelic bard, would refer to repeatedly as the heroic dose. If a microdose is over here and a recreational dose is over here, we're way over here.
It's a bit of an exaggeration. They're not way over here. A recreational dose really is anywhere from 1 to 5 grams. So they're not really way over there. They're at the high end of recreational. There are stories of people taking 10, 20, even as high as 50 grams, which is absolutely mind-boggling insane. So they're not really way over here. They're just pushing it a little bit.
We know that all drugs are in part shaped by the context in which they're given, but for the psychedelic substances, that's particularly more so.
What he's saying is essentially set and setting, for those who know psychedelic lingo.
You tend to get more meaningful reactions to the substance. When the experience unfolds, the person is going to lay down, wear eye shades, and headphones through which music is played.
I've never taken them this way. No, that's a lie. I have actually, but it wasn't intentional. It was just like for part of a mushroom trip, I wanted to blank everything out. But I've never gone on into it with the intent of I'm going to put eye shades and headphones in. Sounds interesting.
We really just encourage them to trust, let go, and be open. Trust the overall process. Going into this type of treatment is not easy at all. Trust yourself that you're robust. You're going to get through this experience. Let go. What does let go mean? Let go means whatever your preconceived notions of what this experience might be or what experience you should have, don't let that get in the way for the experience that you will have. Don't try to control it. And be open. No matter where this takes you, go there.
This is good advice. I mean, I would word it a little differently, but it's really good advice. You know, you got to surrender to whatever happens, and the more expectations you have going in, usually the more disappointed you're going to be. Often whatever you expect to happen doesn't happen. Say you go into that with the intent of, I'm going to quit smoking. You might not really end quitting smoking, but you might have some fantastic insights on what you should do work-related or relationship-related. In that context, also in the context of like actually what it's going to be like, especially if it's your first time. A lot of people have this imagination of, I don't know, stupid shit like seeing pink elephants that's just never going to happen. But yeah, whatever you expect is probably not what you expect. To be honest, in certain dose ranges, it's probably a lot more gentle than you expect. And in other dose ranges, it is way insanely more insane than you could ever fathom.
So the integration phase is where we're discussing the experience with them. And the themes that come up are so varied. One of the aspects you could call revealed truth. And I call these duh moments. These are experiences where people will feel like they've learned something at such a fundamental level. I think of examples in our work we've done with cancer patients where, you know, oftentimes people will say, I'm allowing this to create my own suffering. The cancer hasn't killed me yet. I can still live life, but I'm letting it do this to me. They knew it up here. They could tell you the words, but now they feel it in their bones. They feel it in their heart.
Yeah, it's like the difference between understanding a concept and knowing something. There's a huge difference. A lot of people just regurgitate words that they've heard other people say, but they don't actually feel the things they're saying.
Some people come out of these sessions as participants and say that, you know, 1 6-hour experience with psilocybin is like 1,000 hours of therapy. But one of the pitfalls of this clinical work is that you'd be hard-pressed to find a more intimate and vulnerable psychological intervention for a person. That's just a situation that is ripe for abuses if we don't have the right safeguards.
Which unfortunately commonly happens in, say, ayahuasca circles or ayahuasca ceremonies in South America. There's unfortunately lots of stories of the shamans abusing women, all of that stuff, because these people are in such vulnerable states. It does open the doors for that. And you have to be really cautious when you're doing things like choosing an ayahuasca ceremony to read all the reviews and go to a reputable one.
In the biggest picture, aside from psychedelics' ability to treat one disorder or another, I think they're just poised to really help us to understand the nature of psychiatric disorders. What commonalities do they have with each other that are somehow being addressed by psychedelic treatment? I kind of think of all of these disorders as different forms of addiction. So whether it's to a substance like tobacco or alcohol, cocaine, or a way of thinking about yourself, it's this narrowed mental and behavioral repertoire. Reality used to be like this, and now your reality is like this.
Yeah, they say addiction is just a narrowing of the things that bring you pleasure. Makes sense.
Psychedelics, when done well, in the right setting, had the ability to just blow people out of that narrowed story. It holds a lot of promise in helping us figure out what it takes for the human being to be mentally healthy.
Get smarter, fast.
All right, that was really good. I like that. Like if I wanted to say, try to help change someone's mind or show them that these substances can be used for good, that maybe their beliefs that have been impregnated into them via a really, I don't know, via malicious intent by a society that doesn't actually care about them, that has ulterior motives. Videos like this really help. Another great one is How to Change Your Mind by Michael Pollan on Netflix. All these things can help, but for the most hardened people, there are some people that, you know, aren't ever going to change their views. And there's nothing you can really do. The best you can do is just show them the data and hope that they make up their mind for themselves and they can see clearly. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, make sure to leave it with a big thumbs up. Subscribe to the channel for more. Head on over to psychsubstance.shop, get a very own trip blanket, and I'll see you guys on the next one. Cheers.